Okay, we are joined by Vicky Pisano today. Vicky, thank you for joining. Of
Hi, thanks, Jesse. Thanks for having me.
course.
It's been fun.
So, Vicky started as a pharmacy technician, actually, and then went on to get her pharmacist degree. She's actually been the owner of Preston's Pharmacy out in Falls Church, Virginia, since 2016. Somehow, in all of that, she started lifting competitively and then actually opened up her own CrossFit gym with her husband, which is CrossFit Invictus. And since owning two completely different businesses wasn't enough, she recently just started her own medical spa, which is Core Aesthetic. So, Vicky, I don't know how you have time to talk with us, but thank you for finding the time.
My fault. I missed it the first time, as you know. So bad on me because my reminders didn't go off. But I'm glad that we could reschedule, and I'm glad we
Yeah,
got to do this because we haven't really chatted since kind of when we opened the gym. Really, when we were
yeah.
walking around just talking about business together and just giving each other ideas on marketing. This is awesome.
Yep. And for those that don't know, Vicky's actually our landlord at our Navy Yard location. So thank you for being such a kind and nice landlord.
That's amazing. I forgot that little piece. You made me an entrepreneur, like a full, well-rounded entrepreneur.
You have four businesses,
I love
including
that.
being our landlord.
That's funny. This worked out great. It's amazing.
So the question I always ask everybody, we're physical therapists that love working with people who want to stay active and stay exercising. So if you could only do one form of exercise for the rest of your life, what would it be?
And I don't mean this to sound like a suck up, but I've recently started Pilates. I don't think you know this. And I've come to realize it is a guaranteed 50 minutes of doing PT work because it's slow, controlled, and you have to show up. It's expensive. It's about the same price. And they give you a fine if you don't, meaning I think it's $15 for every class you miss. So I love that. Ever since I've started that, I started doing it because of all the homework that Ashley, your PT at Invictus, gave me. And they were so great that this made me or I was held accountable, I'm sorry, that I couldn't skip if I got busy with work or something else or have to go feed the dog or whatever excuse, you know? And that has kept me healthy to continue just doing the basics. Squat heavy, press heavy, any of those stuff without having aches and pains. And it really, really did help recover my rotator cuff tear. So
That's awesome.
I know it sounds corny, and I know it sounds like I'm sucking up, but it truly is. That's what I would never stop doing.
That's interesting. I did not see that coming. I know you lift
Yeah.
competitively Olympic weightlifting. You own a CrossFit gym. I did not see Pilates coming. So
I
that's
didn't
awesome.
either. I really didn't. It truly is because, hey, like if you're going to stay healthy, people are going to get hurt. They're going to have injuries and they're going to have to get repaired. That's why we see you all, right? That's why we don't go with what the insurance covers and it's like $10 and they're like, here, just jump around for a little bit. It didn't work. So, with that said, it's the homework assignments that Ashley gives that really, really works. So, this is that. It's the same thing. And I love that. I've really seen the benefits of it having been hurt through injuries. So I've seen it successfully done with a lot of
Great.
people.
So the reason I think one of the best things we can talk about today, you have a really interesting mix. You're a pharmacist, you own a pharmacy, you own a CrossFit gym, you're into fitness yourself. So I think one thing we talked about that has a nice intersection of all those things is this recent influx of all the weight loss drugs that are extremely successful, but we're still learning about. I've got clients that are on them. They've got a lot of questions about fitness and things like that. So let's dive into Wegovy, Ozempic, things like that, but also some of the things that we might need to be talking about. So when it comes to this new trend of weight loss drugs, have you seen any big success stories with these lately?
So, yes, for sure, right? So, my background is I make compounded semaglutide and tirzepatide, which is essentially whenever there's a shortage of Wegovy or Ozempic that you see in the media, we make it from scratch. So, that's what I do every single day. And do I see success for sure? Because we see patients that come through the med spa or you see the refills, to be honest with you. It went from I think it was last September when the shortage started. You're making a couple hundred. Now you're making a couple thousand every other day. So it for sure is working. It's the first of its kind that has such low side effects compared to all the other weight loss drugs. Remember fen? I don't know if you're old enough, but where it makes your heart race and all that stuff. You feel like you're on C4, you feel awful, and then you crash and burn, right? So that's the concern when it first came out, but it actually isn't like that at all. So it's been fantastic.
So I've seen a couple of my clients, they've lost 50, 60, 70 pounds when they've tried everything else. Is that something that you think you've seen consistently?
Oh, for sure. So you're gonna lose the weight, right? Because you get on the injections, very simple, small needle. It's like an insulin pen once a week. You take that, it makes you feel full, quiets the mind, if you will, from being always thinking about food and what are you gonna get next? What do you want to eat next? What are the cravings? So it silences that so that you're able to focus on the rest of your life, whatever that may be. It could be work, it could be working out, it could be socializing, just movement in general. It just allows you to think about something else, right? So that has been very, very clear, especially. Here's my little fun fact. My sister is a bariatric patient. So that kind of brings in the whole mental health thing, because some say that it's directly related when you have food dependencies. It's a mental, right, condition. So she got the surgery. I'm the one who took her, lost the weight. Your tummy is now like a fourth of the size, if you will. But that clientele, that what they don't talk about is how much you have to continue getting support, if you will, so that you stay off it. Otherwise, it'll grow in time. This quiets that along the way for the next 5, 10 years or the rest of their life. So that's made her much more healthier too, because there was definitely a surge of you lose 100 and something pounds, and then you start getting the cravings again, or you're eating not such great options, if you will, and then you regain 50 pounds or so. So that's really saved her a lot.
That's awesome. And you mentioned quieting the mind, something I've been really interested in. I've seen a lot of research that shows not just weight loss, but people are less likely to drink, they're less likely to gamble. Have you seen any research on that? Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, that's for sure. So the memes that you see online are actually there's a little bit of truth to it, that there's all these depressed people because they used to go out drinking all the time and now they can't, right? But in all seriousness, yes. So you have all these people that come through. That's the other group, I would say. So you've got your really overweight that you need to reduce that BMI that you're talking about. And then you've got those that were just need maybe that 10, 20 pounds to take off and be healthier, and then take that weight off their knees, and then they can run better, if you will, do box jumps and whatnot. So that allows them just to be more active, and you can literally see that in this area, especially since we're voted Arlington, DC, most active, in all these options, if you will, for people to hang out and do things with. So you definitely see that increase. You see people in the industry talk about it all the time with all the activities. You've seen in your running group, as a matter of fact, that ends at your place, the huge group that's increased, right? So it's very clear.
Very cool. I've heard this from a couple different people, probably more than a couple of people, where they're struggling to, like you said, lose not 60, 70, but lose that last 20 pounds, and they've kind of plateaued, or they're going up and down. And I've suggested, have you talked to your doctor about some of these weight loss drugs? And typically the response is, I don't want to have to rely on a drug to lose that weight. So being a pharmacist, but also being in the fitness world, what would you say to that? What's your response to that?
I personally love immediate gratification, so it's a little hard for me. I'm a little biased, but so this medication, it's not addicting, right? So it's purely what it does, or its mechanism of action is it's creating your stomach lining. It's sending messages to the brain, let's say that. And it's saying, hey, I'm full. A couple of bites and then I'm like pretty good. So that's so great, because if you're someone that knows that that's coming and you're well educated on that, you have a provider that explains that to you, you can plan. That's why I would always suggest personally, if you're going to go down this route, go with a program. Don't go to someone who just writes the script, right? So we've got Lindsay, who we've discussed. She goes to the same CrossFit gym. She was probably one of your maybe patients at some point. And she does a really good job at the med spa here. She talks the whole process, lets you know why it works the way it does, and then gives you an app that has a weight loss suggested program of, hey, how to follow. Here's what kind of foods to eat, to make it real simple and easy and to plan out the week, cost effective. Here's actual Trader Joe's like UPCs to follow along, not these like hypothetical scenarios. And that just creates a successful map, if you will. So like, hey, these are the cool things I can eat. These are the places, these are the options of actual restaurants and dishes I would pick out. And that will allow for the success of it. And then from there, these little changes will create new habits. And then it will help and it will work. And on top of that, you can taper off. And you've already made these changes and you feel good about eating a certain amount. You don't have to abruptly stop. I think that's when the changes don't work, to be honest with you. When you're like, okay, cold turkey all keto, or cold turkey all whatever, no desserts at all, it's a lot harder to sustain that, in my opinion. So
Yeah, I love that,
I'm
because
not.
it's not just take this pill and magically everything changes. Yes, there's some to that, but what you're talking about, I like your approach of, hey, let's talk about your entire health plan and how do we build some healthy habits that are in addition to this pill so that you can actually sustain these long term and you're not just relying on the pill. So for those people that might not necessarily be comfortable taking a pill, you're not
Right.
just doing that, you're creating an entire new ecosystem and habits around your health.
Right. And little baby steps at a time, right? Most of these people that come through that need that 20 pounds, like you were saying, they've either got a pretty decent either exercise habit or they've got pretty good eating habits, but it's something's not working, right? And so that's why they're here. And they need a little adjustments or a little bit of support. So again, it's not a cold turkey and change everything, but it helped to like quiet the mind with that. And then let's maybe who knows? Maybe they're fitnessing a little bit more, do a little more cardio instead of just squatting, right? Not or vice versa. They just needed to tweak up the food plan, if you will, right?
Yeah.
And then they've got the other portion already. So it's all encompassing to your
Yeah.
point, right?
That's great. So, what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions or myths around some of these drugs?
Oh, number one is, of course, you take these drugs and you're just not going to have an appetite at all. And then you can't work out, right? It's just the worst thing ever. It'll just make you anorexic and I don't know, your bones deteriorate. I guess that's the worst case scenario that I've heard. You know, they're like, if I take this, like, I'm just going to become nothing and I'm weak minded, which is completely not true, right? Meaning it makes you feel fuller faster, not stunt your appetite completely. Not to mention, I like to use this example. It's a little extreme, but Naked and Afraid, the show that everyone knows, it takes months and months and months of not eating anything but bugs and sticks to actually not be able to walk anymore. So, reducing the size and portions that you're eating, getting fuller, not eating a whole cheeseburger, for example, but maybe like half at a time, not necessarily a bad thing, right? Not necessarily a bad thing at all. So that's certainly not true. And you're definitely going to have the energy for it if you stick with a meal plan and a program that is all encompassing of a weight loss program, not just a drug itself only. So I go back to just saying that pick a provider that does a weight loss program and gives you resources for that lifestyle change.
Yeah, I think that's great for almost any healthcare issue. Like, pick a provider that's going to not just treat your issue, like, just treat you as a whole person.
Correct. And another piece is that not everyone has to fitness the same, right? Movement can be different for everyone. What your body may need, because hey, you're plateauing at a certain rate, but you're still running marathons, but you're still got that visceral fat that you're trying to take off and you have a high BMI. Maybe totally different from me. Let's say I was completely stagnant and I didn't do anything. Adding a little bit, 30 minutes of just walking may just cut the weight real fast, 2 pounds a week off. So they need to be able to understand that too.
Yeah, one size does not fit all when it comes to fitness plans, health plans, anything like that.
Right, right.
So if that's something that you think people maybe shouldn't be as worried about as far as like they're going to waste away or they're going to turn anorexic or things like that, what's something that you think we should be talking about more when it comes as these weight loss drugs become more popular?
The long-term plan goals, right? So the other piece of that is, hey, I don't want to get addicted. I don't want to be only on drugs. So when you seek a provider, I think in general, you should ask the question, hey, what should I be expecting 6 months from now? What would be my target goal weight? And when we get there, how do I come off of it? There's a lot of options, meaning reduce the strength. There's supplements that you can do for energy along the way too, and I mean natural options too. That is, there's just so many different ones. I can't say hey one thing fits, but I definitely think that that's something that some these are the questions you should be asking anyone that's considering it at all. Hey, I'm currently doing this and I would like to reach this goal weight at this time. What should I plan? What does that look like? How long do you think this would take? And we can adjust along the way. If they don't have an answer for you, then that's probably not the provider. It's not really the drug. You should just find someone else, and we have the resources, you and I. So please ask us if you don't have someone that can do that for you. Otherwise, it's going to be positive no matter what if you
Okay,
find
so
a provider.
kind of goes back to not just taking the drug, but having an actual plan in place for the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. What are we doing to sustain and get healthier?
Just like PT, right? If we were to get hurt, right? Just same.
Yep.
Having a plan. Mm-hmm.
And then I've seen a lot of research of, and maybe this is, you can actually confirm this, in addition to fat loss, there's actually a lot of muscle loss as well when people are on these drugs. Is that still the case? I was seeing that before, but I haven't checked it lately.
So the muscle loss goes back to being the provider and being a responsible party. I'll be honest with you. I've seen tons of people drug seek too. That's where it gets so the bad rep. That's why we have an in body. I'm pretty sure you guys have one of those too, right? It measures somebody's fat, muscle tone, weight before they, and you kind of it's a nice guide. It may not be perfectly accurate, but it's something to go off of, right? So when you go in and the correct candidate that should be on this should have a high BMI, meaning they should have something over 27, that means their visceral fat is higher. If you're looking at someone who we call skinny fat and they're just not going to move, they're going to sit at their desk all day, for example, and they're drug seeking, those are the people we honestly turn away from the med sweat, because those are the ones that are losing muscle. And it's actually a detriment, because not because of the drug, but now you're just not doing anything to increase protein intake, which means that you're not building anything. There's no chance your body can make any kind of muscle around that bone. So to answer your question in short, is it still happening? As long as those people are still seeking and finding something online and not finding a correct provider, sure. There's somebody always seeking something that's cheap, made from China, doing something. But if you're responsible about it and you actually have a sit down with a provider to see if you're a correct candidate, that shouldn't happen, because that should be part of your game plan on what to do to gain muscle.
Got it. So as long as someone is increasing their protein intake, as long as someone is participating in some sort of strength building or exercise, then that muscle loss doesn't necessarily has to
It does
happen.
not have to happen, correct? Exactly. And then if it becomes a hormone and age thing, okay, fine, that becomes a bigger picture. That's a PCP thing, right? Hey, I'm losing muscle with age, not necessarily the drug per se, but we should add strength training, just like you said, or increase a certain amount of protein you need per day.
Okay, got it. And so it wasn't actually something I was necessarily going to ask, but you talk about protein. I think a lot of people tell me they're getting enough protein. How can someone know whether they're getting enough protein or not? Because I find when I talk about it a little bit more, they're a little bit surprised how little they actually are getting.
I think that goes across no matter what year or who you talk to, right? So this is my rule of thumb. For an everyday average person, we've heard it. 1 gram per pound, right? We've heard it, but it's a lot harder to do unless you actively think about it. Hence, having guidelines like this, if you're on a weight loss program at least, right? This will give you a nice little guide on, hey, these are the expectations and these are the pictures, these are the things you're looking for, this is the approximate amount. So being aware of it is number one. If you're not on one of these, doing a little bit of research would probably be ideal, and just knowing your goal weight. So for the average person who's not trying to gain muscle and whatnot, but just trying to sustain, the rule of thumb of 1 pound to 1 gram of protein per day is ideal. For me, I drink that chalky milk every morning by Fairlife. That guarantees me 30, and it's delicious. Chug it, done. Another 30 while I'm gasping for air while I'm working out at night. That's 60. That's halfway to my 120 that I would ideally be at, right? So that's what I like to play with personally. I think that helps a lot. 2 chocolate milks, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening. I'm halfway there. And then 2 more like chicken breasts, throughout the day or something like that. And then I'm getting closer to that 100 mark. So if you don't do that and you're only eating, let's say, what's a popular thing people do? Oatmeal only, and you're not adding any peanut butter to it, that's where you fray from the goal. I think that, so to answer your question, I'm sorry, I wasn't ready for that either, is just being aware and being informed, listening to this conversation, this banter, essentially, then knowing, hey, now I know I'm not getting nearly enough. And there are simple, easy, delicious solutions, and it doesn't have to be horrible. I had learned the hard way when I first started CrossFit and I didn't know any better. I was just following what bodybuilders did, and I drank literal egg whites with protein powder, and I would gag and then drink it, and then it didn't sustain. I couldn't do it. And then I just got really, really skinny from running and doing a lot of cardio, and it didn't work. But anyways, you learn from your mistakes. Don't do that.
We all learn from our own mistakes, but I think just I would agree. Like just being aware, I think is the number one thing. So simple tracking, how much protein are you getting for 3 to 4 days in a row, and it'll just tell you, are you on track? Are you way off track? Are you right there? So
Right.
I think the awareness piece is perfect.
What do you usually tell people for goals?
I'm not a nutrition coach. I'm not a nutritionist, so I typically will say the same thing. I'll say guidelines say this. That doesn't necessarily mean that's exactly what you need. What I say is here's the guideline of average, like you say. Do some tracking, see where you're at, and then from there, what I usually say is I'm not the expert, so if you want more guidance from there, here's some nutrition coaches that I think are great, and maybe go talk to them. My number one place that I start is just track your food for 3 to 4 days, just so you have an awareness. So I'm totally on the same page as you.
Okay, great. Yeah, I like that. I really do. Because I don't try to push everyone towards like, hey, spend more money, go see this all the time. But not everyone's ready for that all the time. But if you're just aware a little bit, just record at least like you said, a week, that's nice. Then you can see where you're at.
Yep, that's the number one place I usually start.
Great. I like that.
So this has been great. So weight loss drugs, fitness. If you had one message you want to leave people with, or if you wish people had one piece of health advice they knew, what would that be?
I wrote something down. I want to make sure I don't lose it. I would say get rid of the mirrors. I wanted to make sure because the best thing that CrossFit ever taught me was stop looking at it, like that, it'll just happen secondary. The weight, the abs, the tonus, it comes later. Just focus on the activity in the moment and it will come. And you're gonna be so much happier than obsessing over the looks of it. Whether it's food or fitness, just focus on what you're doing. Get rid of the mirrors. It's great. And now they have filters these days too. You know, you don't need to look at anything that you don't want to see. So you literally can see yourself in any light that you want. That's the best thing that's ever happened for me. And I think for everyone, really.
I love that message. Focus on the activity, focus on the habits.
That's it.
Don't focus on the outcome. The outcome will come.
It literally will.
That's a great message. I love that.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
All right, Vicky. So, out of all your ecosystem of businesses, how can people find out more? How can people find you? What's your contact information?
So, because we were talking about GLPs, I just want to throw it out there that I'm really proud of our pharmacy for doing all these extra testing and all these extra things, let's just say, to make sure our drugs are safe, they're compatible, they're clean, they're USP grade, they're made in the US, all those things, right? So, I want to make sure that everyone knows that you want to see a provider that knows what they're talking about. So, of course, coreaesthetic.com is great. Lindsay, my nurse practitioner, is amazing. She's primary care, and then she also specializes here in weight loss and GLPs. So she knows the product, she understands, she's empathetic, she knows the whole global picture, and she uses good product. Right. So that's what I want to pass the message on. And if you don't, and you can't see her because I'm out in Falls Church, reach out so I can give you a resource because we've been here for so long making drugs for so many providers all over the US. I'd like to share the names and the providers that really know what they're talking about because I do. I talk to them all day. This is what we do, right? We help them prescribe. So just go with someone that is well trusted and knows what they're doing and been doing it for a long time. And that would be and that's the best thing. Other than that, all the fitnesses out there are great. I know, Jesse, you do all the things and you like to support all the different businesses. And I'm sure we can both agree that there's a type of fitness for everyone. It doesn't have to be the same. And they're all great. They're all lovely people and they just want to be there to help you and be a part of your journey.
Yep. I always say the best type of fitness is whatever you enjoy and whichever one you're going to do most consistently.
You know, that's easy and well put. Yeah, that's so true. Don't do something that feels forced because you're going to stop and it's not going to be fun anymore.
Yep.
Yeah, totally.
This has been great, Vicky. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jazzy. I'll talk to you soon, okay? Thanks for having me.